Hi, if I sound and look a little sick, it's because I am. At least of the time of filming this video, you're gonna see it a little bit later while I'm on my road trip. I decided that since the 6th and final issue of the Harley Quinn Eat, Bang, Kill tour came in, that I was going to basically review it. I was going to wait for all the issues to come out for me to talk about it, because I felt like doing it issue by issue just kind of would have been, I don't know, I don't like doing things one at a time. I want to get it done all together now that all 6 issues are out. Let me explain what this comic series is. It's basically a spin-off from the Harley Quinn Animated Series. It's supposed to tease you for Season 3 that is coming out on HBO Max soon, according to the creators of the show. And I'm not still particularly sure whether this is the first 6 episodes of the series or what, but it definitely is attached to the series, as when you go to issue number 1, it picks up right at the end of Season 2, where Harley and Ivy are trying to run from the police, and they somehow get away, this, that, and the other. And the first issue is very slow, mainly because it's trying to set everything up, as, you know, Harley and Ivy end up going back to their place, realizing they can't stay there because Gordon is after them, because he wants to take mainly Harley in, because at this point in time Gotham was so destroyed that it wasn't deemed a state anymore. So to give it its state status back, Washington, D.C., and Commissioner Gordon made this deal that if he takes in Harley and Ivy and can help rebuild Gotham City, then they'll make Gotham a state again. So Commissioner Gordon, this time, after all the failures, is really destined to catch them, and the only choice that Harley and Ivy have is basically going, oh, hey, we need to kind of jump around, we need to stay at places, and once they get closer, we need to just, you know, leave and keep going, and because they can't keep at this game forever. Throughout this one, too, Ivy is getting really, she's still trying to comprehend everything, because keep in mind, this literally happened minutes after Kite Man was supposed to marry her, but he said, I don't know if you're being genuine, I don't want to do this anymore. So she's still trying to figure out whether she has feelings for Harley or not, or it's all just kind of like, I don't really know at this point. And she ends up agreeing to do whatever with Harley, so they go out, they do whatever, and, you know, there's a raunchy scene between the two, but not a lot, because it's still a comic book in a way, so you're not going to see much. And they decide to start to go off on their adventure by starting off by going to Selina Kyle's place, Catwoman, because they're not necessarily friends, but they're good enough friends or acquaintances that maybe, just maybe, Selina Kyle will let them stay. And then we get issue number 2, which obviously is them going to Selina Kyle's place, and she's just kind of confused as to why they're there. She doesn't really want to harvest criminals at this point, because keep in mind, in this one, Selina Kyle also used to date Batman. She kind of mentions it to them, where Selina Kyle's like, oh, and he kind of just couldn't really choose between me and the crime fighting, and in the end the relationship ended up souring. So this whole time they're at Selina's place, they do a lot of things there, like eat, drink, whatever, you name it, all while Commissioner Gordon is still trying to figure out where they are. And eventually he finds Selina Kyle's place, and he's actually stopped by the hyenas of all things. Like, yeah, I forgot to mention that the hyenas are in this particular universe Bud and Lou, so Harley ends up sending them out there. They take care of business, which ends up helping them escape the clutches of not only Commissioner Gordon, but Batman shows up, and Selina Kyle kind of stalls. She wouldn't move out of the way for Batman, knowing that Batman didn't necessarily want to hurt her in any way. So, you know, in the end, Selina Kyle still did a good thing for Harley and Ivy. And that leads us to the 3rd issue. After Harley and Ivy get away, we have one of the more weirder ones in the series, because, you know, this doesn't have a whole lot to do with anything in this series. You kind of see this character in here once and then never again, and it kind of starts off weird because Harley and Ivy are fighting with Hush. So apparently now Riddler is now Hush, and he's, you know, going after Harley and Ivy. Well, he's not actually going after. He actually came over and was hitting on, was it Harley or Ivy? He was hitting on one of them, and he got mad that they were saying, oh no, I'm not interested, whatever. They were kind of, you know, making fun of him, as they would do. So they're getting in like this epic fight with him, and the whole time, obviously, Harley's like, well, wait, let me flash you back. Here's how this happened, kind of telling the story. and it goes through how, they just were going out to eat somewhere. They were just trying to have a nice time, a nice date, only to find out that obviously shit was about to go down. And there was also this part where, since they are basically wanted, these two girls walk into the bathroom where Harley's at, and they realize it, and then she's like, oh my god, we gotta call 911, but luckily Ivy storms in and stops them because, well, I mean, Ivy's always getting Harley out of some bullshit in this series, as we've seen again and again. And, Ivy's starting to get real mad and defensive. Like, it just seems like this relationship may or may not work out, leading toward the latter of it. And then Nightwing kind of gets introduced. This is the only issue you see him in. He gets a call about Harley and Ivy being near where he's at, the restaurant and everything. So he ends up going there to capture them, but, Harley and Ivy kind of sweet talk him and talk about his ass. They even call him Asswing and stuff like that. Like, they do that pretend flirting thing. It's very, like, you understand a lot of the female characters in comics just tend to have that trait where they just, like, fake flirt to kind of reel someone in, or just to kind of make someone go, you know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna take you to jail. That's kind of what they were playing here. And Nightwing just swiftly kind of goes away. No damage done whatsoever. And then we get Commissioner Gordon coming in, and this time he's trying to kill Harley and Ivy. At this point, he's fed up. He just wants them dead, and obviously, Nightwing knows, being trained by Batman, that that's not something you really stand for, so he's actually trying to help Harley and Ivy, not necessarily let them get away, but just trying to convince Commissioner Gordon to be like, hey, look, if you want them, take them to jail, but do not kill them. That's not what a police officer is there to do. However, he does jump in front of the gun that Commissioner Gordon's holding when he's aiming it at Harley and Ivy. Now, Commissioner Gordon doesn't shoot because Batgirl ends up showing up. Now, he still doesn't know that Barbara, his daughter, is Batgirl, but Batgirl kind of talks some sense into him because for some reason he feels that connection with Batgirl. Like, there's just something about her in his mind that makes him go, I should listen to her, and he does. And then they end up in the restaurant where things go down with Hush. Obviously, they end up fighting him, they end up defeating him, and then they go to this carnival, and they just kind of like, mess with him a little bit. They have him at that game where, you have the mallet and you hit the bell and the thing goes up, you see how far you can hit it. Well, they kind of, put him up there, and obviously, his legs are like spread like this, so every time it goes up, and it goes up all the way, it hits him in the nuts. I thought that was pretty funny. I really wasn't expecting that. I thought they were just gonna not kill him, but, at least find a way to just make him go away forever. And then, boom, Harley and Ivy have sex, and on to issue number 4. So issue number 4 is when things really start to take place. It's kind of like, I don't know if you watched the show Peacemaker, which, fantastic series, by the way, but they released the first 3 episodes all at once on HBO Max because it was kind of like it got to the point, but it didn't get to the full point. Like, it got to the whole Project Butterfly thing, and you're starting to understand a little bit more, but the other 5 episodes, you start to understand things, and by episode 6 or 7, you're really like, oh, okay, I get it now. Well, with these first 3 issues, they just kind of seem like, okay, so they're just trying to avoid Commissioner Gordon. Like, not that he's the main villain in these, comics here, but he seems to be their main problem that they're trying to run from. But then cue the 4th issue here, and they are currently hiding out at Bloodhaven, and this is when we get introduced to, I think his name is Meftic, who's kind of just this big giant stink ball. Like, that's his thing, is like he's just so stinky that it just kind of, makes the surrounding area just like they get poisoned, and sometimes he even, takes them, like the Venom symbiote takes them and just kind of pulls them into his body to make him stronger. And Harley and Ivy see this on TV as Meftic calls out Poison Ivy, saying, I'm gonna be the best when it comes to, being this poisonous creature, not you. So he kind of calls her out on that. She gets a little upset. We see Cyborg and Vixen try to fight this thing, and it doesn't go well. The big giant stink ball gets away, and Ivy starts to get a little jealous, saying, whoa, this thing just called me out on TV. I wanna go fight it. And Harley's just kind of like, dude, just hold on a second. I understand where you're coming from. I'm all for competition, but we're trying to run away from the cops right now. We can't really go out and be doing that stuff because, well, we'll get caught, and we could potentially die as well throughout all of this. And we just kind of see Harley start to take a little bit more control. Like, she's seeing that Ivy isn't being herself, and Harley, using her obvious psychiatrist skills, is just like, look, we need to just slow things down, we need to calm down, we need to go somewhere else, we need to get you away from this, so that way it's not bothering you so much. So then we end up going to the house of Livewire, which, if you remember, Livewire was one of the three, female characters in the Batman Animated Series episode Girls' Night Out, where it was her joined by Harley and Poison Ivy, and they kind of do make references to that in this comic as well. Like, there's a lot of homages to Batman the Animated Series, which I thought was pretty cool here. So yeah, they're trying to be like, hey, can we stay here, this, that, and the other, and come to find out Livewire ended up breaking up with her girlfriend, and she's kind of still mad at Harley and Ivy for what they did, or at least Harley for what she did. But when Ivy shows up, Livewire still kind of gets, she gets a little bit more like, oh, hey, Ivy, like, more friendly, because she doesn't have a problem with Ivy in general, and she's just kind of, sits down, talks with them, like, what's wrong, why are you here, what's going on? And in the end, that they are not welcome to stay, but Livewire does say, but I know a place that you can, so again, still kind of helping them out, helping them get through things. And then they end up going to this hotel, and by the way, Ivy's now mad at Harley because she wasn't happy that she was trying to get, Livewire in on this, or at least just barge into Livewire's house after saying, oh yeah, I got her permission, we could stay there, when she really didn't. So she was kind of angry that Harley was lying to her in this case. And then they end up finding out that there's this meeting going on between these, I think, like, economists or whatever, who obviously are trying to destroy nature and all that. We know Ivy isn't a fan of that, so Harley tried to win her back, be like, hey, how about we go get those guys and then, kill them, because isn't that what you do when people destroy nature, try to destroy nature? You get rid of them. We could definitely do it together, to which it catches Ivy's attention, so they end up beating these two stewardesses and taking their outfits. And by the way, I don't know, it's because the way she's drawn, but Harley without the white makeup on her face looks weird, creepy, like something out of a horror movie. I think it's just the eyes and the smile when she doesn't have the makeup on. It's weird. So they create this food that ends up just like poisoning the people at the meeting, killing them. Not even poisoning, there's like blood coming out of every orifice of their face. It's very violent when it should be. And then in the end, Ivy's like, oh, that was cool. Maybe I got a little too overheated recently. And, that was that. You thought they were going to be okay. And then we have Vixen stepping in because she found out what just happened. And, of course, she wants to take Harley and Ivy in. But in the end, they end up fighting and all this kind of stuff. And then nothing really happens. Harley and Ivy do get away because the animals that Vixen can control shows up. And that is because Ivy tried to trick Vixen by doing the whole, blow and a kiss thing with the little, kind of potion that would, like, distract the person and they would go away. But now the animals are kind of attracted to her and they're running toward them. But again, Ivy and Harley kind of get the hell out of there. And this creature shows up with the stank and the smell. And that's how issue number 4 ends. We're starting to get to the thick of things. As with issue number 5, this time we get it start out to where Harley and Ivy go back to their hotel where they're going to have a bath together, while the others we have seen since then are trying to figure out what is going on here. Zatanna gets introduced in here, and it's a whole cluster. Like, even reading this, you're just like, what the hell? Like, what is this thing, and why is it so fixated on Harley in general? So when they get back to the hotel, since they stink so much from whatever that was, they're getting a bath, and Harley starts to realize that Ivy's being a little bit off, to where she seems a bit pushy. And at this point, Harley's fed up. She's like, look, you told me to stop being so pushy with you or whatever. I've been doing that, but it seems like recently you've kind of just turned yourself into what you told me not to be. So she storms off. She ends up going to the strip club, and then this is where everything goes down, and we figure out whose head they go into this season, at least for now, and that is back into Poison Ivy's head as she starts to sit there and contemplate, be like, oh my god, I messed up, I can't believe this. and we get to see more of her childhood in this case, you know, from what went down when she was a kid to memories with Harley, good and bad, even memories with Kite Man, remembering that her memories with Harley were a lot better than Kite Man's, even going back to season 1 episode 12 when the Joker stabbed her and killed her, and she realizes that Harley was right, but it's too late. Harley's gone. She's at the strip club. Harley leaves her a note which says, "I love you, Pammy, and I want you to be okay. If you don't open up to me, please open up to someone, XO Harls." And here is when you're thinking, you know, is this relationship really going to be, like, you're still questioning that, even though you already know the answer, but, like, you're still left in limbo as to how this will work out in general, because, you know, you gotta picture where Harley's coming from. She's tired of relationships like this. She spent so many years with the Joker that she's just done with the mental and physical abuse, and Harley's just kind of, you know, treating her like garbage again, or not even like garbage, just kind of taking her for granted, taking her for down, not realizing that she's the problem right now, and she let that get to her, again, obviously. So then we get to Harley in the strip club. She meets Peaches, who's just a regular stripper there, and she knows who Harley is because, well, everybody knows who Harley and Ivy are. I mean, they're wanted people at this point. But I thought that Peaches was like some ruse thrown in there for the bad guys, but it turns out no, the bad guys just end up finding where she's at, and in comes big old Stank Ball, and after Harley tries to mercifully fight off the Stank Ball, he takes her, and then we're left with a weird scene where we cut back to Ivy, and she's doing her makeup in the mirror, and then Harley Quinzel, Harley before Harley, pops into the picture and starts talking to Ivy, and she's like, wait, I thought only Harley could, like, understand you because, you know, in the end you're still in her mind. And she was like, well, sometimes close friend of hers can, you know, really feel my presence too. And she starts talking to Ivy about, you know, what's wrong, what's going on here, you know, some things you need to open up about. And then as we went into Ivy's mind in season 1, I think, late season 1, we found out that Harley's biggest fear was being let down by someone that she was close to, which was Harley. Now, when we go inside her head, we realize that the thing that she fears the most is losing people that really cared about her, like Catwoman, Livewire, and Kite Man for some reason, I guess. But yeah, it's very weird, and she's in the strip club, and she asks Peaches what happened, and Peaches tells her, hey, they took Harley. She tried to fight him off, but she couldn't. And then it's kind of cool as we go back into the memories of Ivy, which is now set in her childhood. We see Frank the Plant, who was kind of a reoccurring character from season 1 and season 2, who we haven't seen up to this point. And she's asking him, why is he, or why are you here? When did you show up? And he's like, well, we're in your mind. I'm still a part of your mind, so technically I'm still here. And we basically just come to find out that a lot of Ivy's trauma comes from her dad mainly just being very, again, abusive to her in ways to where she does what Harley did when Harley entered her mind to change her origin story. Pam just beats the shit out of her father, or at least her imaginative father, and that kind of, you know, resets everything. And then she finds out where Harley is as Mr. Stanky McPoosin ends up making a video live on the news with a knocked out Harley all strapped up and saying, look, you got a certain amount of time to come get her, or if you don't meet that time, I will kill her and turn her into this, I don't know, another Stank Ball. I'm still kind of, you know, was like, what? I still don't understand what he plans to do. And to this point, Harley's pissed. She's going to save Harley, and that leads us to the 6th and final issue, which is the thrilling conclusion to what they call the Journey of Love series here. And it's really interesting because this one, Ivy is now trying to get help. She's trying to figure out who can go, who can help her, and we get introduced to her plant, Dandy, who is the little, like, dandelion plants that she, like, talks to, like, hey, you're small enough, go do this and come back and tell me if the coast is clear, all that kind of stuff. I think we saw him a little bit in the first season, and then we see Ivy run into Peaches, and Peaches is like, hey, there's anything I can do to help, and Ivy's like, how about you give me a ride so I can go, you know, talk to somebody. And then we go to Mr. Pooh Man, and Harley, and he's starting to kind of like, I guess, interrogate Harley in some way, and Harley's obviously trying to distract him by like being like, you know, I'm a doctor, I can help you and all this kind of stuff, and he's not really falling for it that much. So, you know, he kind of comes up with this different plan, and then we find out what he's trying to do. He's trying to basically turn everybody into his minion zombies, and apparently why he's doing it to Harley is because he's trying to get under Ivy's skin so that way he can capture her and kind of make her like the strong sidekick to him in some sort of way, because he knows how powerful she is, and then he'll truly be the best, I guess you could say, poison villain in Gotham, because he just took down one of the best and controlled her to where she is following orders from him. And then we have Peaches dropping Ivy off to this building, and we find out that that's where Vixen lives. And even though her and Vixen aren't on great terms, she's like, hey, Harley's captured, I need your help. Vixen's just like, why is that any of my business? You know, what does this have to do anything with me? And she's like, well, you are a superhero, right? I mean, superheroes, no matter who it is, they don't like to see people die, so, you know, if you can help me. And Vixen didn't want to do it at first, but her girlfriend pops in, and Vixen has a soft spot for her girlfriend, so obviously if her girlfriend's like, hey, please do this, not, you know, for me and her, then she ends up being like, okay, whatever, you know, I'll do it. And that's when, you know, we see her give Ivy this new outfit, and they end up finding the place that Harley is at. Then we kind of, you know, fast forward. I don't know if it's still in Gotham City or what, but we have Commissioner Gordon just sitting on his couch looking defeated while Barbara Gordon is sitting there, and then she gets a ominous call from Steph. And I don't know if you remember who Steph is, but in Season 2, Episode 2, Riddler U, that's the persona that Clayface uses to sneak in to Riddler U. Apparently, as Steph, he's befriended Barbara, they become like best friends, and guess what? We see Clayface and King Shark again. I thought that was pretty cool. They were two prominent characters from the first two seasons, that seeing them again after so long was really cool, and I hope that means that in Season 3 we will definitely get to see them a lot more. But basically the reason that Clayface still calls Barbara as Steph is because he wants to keep updated as to where Harley and Ivy are, how they're doing, this, that, and the other, and also her and Barbara had a bet that this Harley-Ivy thing wasn't going to work out, or was going to work out depending on if you were Barbara Gordon or Steph. And, you know, that was basically that. That was like the King Shark and Clayface cameo that we got. They don't show up anymore. Then we go to the present time where Harley is still, again, trying to stall for being turned into Stank. She's like, yo, well, I think, you know, there might be a better way to do this. She's thinking she can fight her way out of this. But she just can't. And she realizes that, and she pretty much thinks that at this point in time, she's a goner. But Ivy and Vixen are right outside the place where Mr. Pooball is keeping her, and at this point, Vixen's like, you know, we need to come up with a plan. We can't just barge into where Ivy just kind of expresses her true feelings for Harvey. She's like, I didn't come this far to watch her die. We need to go in there, we need to barge in there, we need to kick some ass. And she's like, alright, but, you know, at this point, Ivy, you're on your own. So she sends in her little dandelion friends to let Ivy know that she's coming, and then boom, there it is. Ivy got in, but she didn't realize that, well, you know, Harley dies in 6 minutes. And at this point, Ivy comes to a realization that she's got 6 minutes to say goodbye. So she kisses Harley, says what she has to say, apologizes, and then you realize it's not because she's going to let Harley die. It's because she's going to sacrifice herself. And if you remember, she's already died once in the series, so Harley is just distraught. She's like, please don't do this. I've seen you die once already. I don't want to see it happen again, or at least in front of me. And at this point you're thinking, oh shit, it's going to get really bad. But then Livewire comes in and destroys the machine that was aimed right at Ivy and Harley that was going to kill them. And then boom, you bring Vixen in, Zatanna comes into the mix, and they all help defeat this monster, basically turning her back into her normal self, because we find out this slime ball, this stank breath, was basically a woman who got cursed because she didn't wipe her ass after she would take a shit. Hi, sick me again, this time finishing up the editing. There's one thing I forgot to mention, and that is Harley may look a little green toward the end of this comic, because when everything was going down with Mr. Walking B.O., she was slowly being transformed into like this mutated plant kind of thing. It doesn't really affect her that much because of the whole immune thing to toxins, but he ends up reversing that. So she kind of looks more like a, not necessarily lime green. It's not as noticeable as like Ivy's green, but you can definitely tell it's there. And Ivy mentions that she has to help get her some sort of antidote to get her back to being immune to this stuff and kind of, taking her away from being transformed into this mutative whatever the hell it was going to be. So, forgot to mention that. That was a pretty important part. Now that you know that, though, we're pretty much caught up on everything, and that's about it. They end up taking the woman in, and Vixen was like, hey, Ivy, we made a deal earlier, which I forgot to mention that deal, which was Vixen said she would help Ivy out with Harley, but afterwards, Ivy would have to turn herself in at least. But, Vixen was like, my girlfriend would kick my ass if I brought you two to jail, so we're just going to say this is your get-out-of-jail-free card, because in the end, you did kind of save the world. So you kind of did the hero thing as opposed to the villain thing in this case. So then, Vixen ends up leaving, but then Commissioner Gordon comes storming in and is like, I'm going to get you. But Tawny, the reporter, actually had a smart ploy here, which was to go live and say, hey, Harley and Ivy, how do you feel after basically just saving the world, to kind of make Commissioner Gordon look like a fucking, just like, wow, he's really doing this to people who just saved the world, and he gets embarrassed after Livewire kind of shoots toward him one of her little thunderbolt things, and again, now we have Commissioner Gordon left speechless, defeated, because, well, he just got embarrassed on TV again, and he realized that what he was trying to accomplish wasn't accomplished, and, as Tawny is talking, the reporter, it gets very, very meta, as it says, if you've missed any episodes of Harley and Ivy Shenanigans, be sure to catch reruns streaming on HBO Max. Maybe this time Gordon will actually apprehend Harley Quinn. Thank you to all of my viewers for your support and tips. See you soon for Season 3. And then down the bottom, usually at the end of each of these comics, it would tell you next exit, like next stop. And it says Next Exit Season 3 on HBO Max. So, yeah, it got very meta at the end, and that's how it finishes off. Like I said, I don't know if these are supposed to be the first 6 episodes of the series, because if you watch the trailer from the DC Fandom, there's definitely elements from these comics that are there, like, that would hint that some of these episodes are going to be there. But after the 6th issue, what are they going to do? Because I highly doubt that it's 6 episodes. Like, they can't just come back with these 6 episodes. I know mainly a lot of shows do that nowadays, but when you have a series that's less than 10 episodes, usually the show goes from anywhere between 40 to 50 minutes, but these are 22-minute episodes, so I would think that maybe there's like 10 to 12 episodes, kind of similar to what the first 2 seasons were, where it was 13 episodes. I still think Commissioner Gordon is out to get Harley and Ivy in some way, so I don't think that story is done in particular, because it's never mentioned if the two go back to Gotham or not, or they just continue going where they want to go. I have no clue, but that's basically the Harley Quinn Eat, Beg, Kill Tour 6-issue spinoff to kind of get you ready for what Season 3 of the Harley Quinn Animated Series has to offer. It was a really, really interesting one. I hated that I had to wait a month for each issue to come out. It was just like, oh, you get so attached, and then you're like, oh, and then by the time the new issue came in, you had to reread the issue prior to, again, get an understanding as to where things were at and what was going on and all. But yeah, it was a nice little treat. And now, again, I'm just looking forward to the series on HBO Max coming back for another season, as the end of this comic mentions. So, yeah. If you've read the comic, you can tell me in the comments below, what do you think? What are some things to expect for Season 3 of the show? As a matter of fact, I made a video as to what to expect for Season 3 of the show. I will link the video up there so you can go watch it. It was made a while ago, but yeah, it was made right around the tail beginning of this comic series coming out, so there might still be some things that were, not mentioned because we didn't really know much yet, and this was before the DC fandom trailer that kind of confirmed everything, but I kind of go through what we might want to expect or can expect from Season 3, and some things that were confirmed for that season in general. So, yeah, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and I will catch you all in the next one.
You tell Commissioner Gordom that I am the baddest bitch in town. I'm Harley Quinn. I'm impetuous. I kiss people at random. Mwah!
What's happening?